Hello, my kindred spirits. How in the world are y'all doing today? I hope that every one of you are doing great. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in the Carolina Piedmont. It's warm but not too humid, and I worked outside in my garden earlier today, and so many beautiful things are coming up. I've got some cherry tomatoes, and my basil's blooming like crazy, and we've got a bunch of flowers out there and strawberries, so it's so much fun to see it all coming up and coming into bloom and then creating fruits and vegetables. So I can't wait to be getting out there before too long and harvesting some of that. But how are y'all doing? I hope that everyone is doing great out there and enjoying this beautiful weather wherever you live. And today I thought that I would just do a fun little video and share a few things that I'm doing lately. And maybe next week I'll do the video that I actually had planned for you. I wanted to share with you a big box of memorabilia from my father's broadcasting days, but I'm just not quite ready to do that yet. So I thought that I would just share with you some fun things that we've got going on. So first of all, it's Monday when I'm recording this, and as most of you know, we have big Sunday dinners every week, and all of my children come back home along with their significant others, and then we also have our widowed neighbor, Mr. Jerry, who comes over, and then sometimes we'll have friends or a cousin. I've got a cousin who lives in town, and my aunt and then her family, they'll all come over too. So there's always a mixture, but we always have so much fun. And last night I served a salad supper. So we had homemade chicken salad and then a homemade crab meat salad. We had a pretzel salad. Have you ever had that pretzel gelatin salad before? That's what we had for our dessert. And then also we had a fruit salad too. So it was a salad kind of day, and it was all so good. And then we all wound up on the front porch, as we always do. Our home, it's kind of wide, and then the plans had a front porch on it. That was very important to us to have a front porch, but the planned porch was only supposed to be 8 feet deep, but we wanted a porch in which you could set 2 chairs across from one another and almost make it like an outdoor living space. And so ours, we added 2 more feet to it, so it's a 10-foot wide porch. And I don't know how long, it's really long, but anyway, we have lots of chairs, a porch swing, a rocking chair, and ceiling fans. That was important to have the ceiling fans too, so that we could stay cool in the summertime. But it's so much fun, and it doesn't matter if it's the heat of summer or the super cold of winter. We always wind up out on that front porch, and we have the best conversations. I don't think there's any topic that's off limits. We talk about everything, but it's fun to get out there and get other people's opinions, especially our children-in-law, because they came from different families and different raisins, and it's good to get somebody else's opinion about things. But we all love each other, and we all come back together in the end, even if we don't agree on every single thing. But this is fun because our daughter's boyfriend is from Vietnam, and so we used to call our Sunday dinners International Sunday, because our son Wesley had moved away, and we were being sneaky, I have to say, because we were trying to get him to make sure he came home every Sunday and had dinner with us. And so we called it International Sunday because some of you know that Wesley is a traveler. He loves to travel. He always has been interested in just the world, and ever since he was a little boy. So he travels all over the place. He's currently in Cambodia, as a matter of fact, so he's doing a project for school. But anyway, we started calling it International Sunday because we would choose a different country every Sunday and make a themed dinner with that. And it was so much fun. We had a ball doing that. But we've kind of stopped doing that because it's a lot of work, first of all. It's already a lot of work to fix food for that many people, but to add on trying to create something from a different country every Sunday, it was like, oh, okay, whoa, this is too much. But all that to say, my daughter's boyfriend is from Vietnam, and he has offered to do an international Sunday sometime soon with foods from Vietnam. And we are so excited about that because we are adventurous eaters. We love to eat anything and everything just about. And so, but Vietnamese food is delicious. And so we are so excited. He will sometimes bring food over that his mother has prepared. And he brings it for our daughter, of course, but we we will sneak in that refrigerator and get a hold of some of that stuff. It is, oh, it's so good. It's so good. So anyway, lots of fun on Sundays at our house. And I took my son and his wife Rachel, my son Nate and his wife Rachel, out to our garden last night, and I was showing them all the things that are blooming, and some things are already producing fruits and vegetables out there. And so I picked them each a little cherry tomato that was good and ripe and really warm out there. And then I got a little piece of basil, and I tore it in two, and then I handed them each a fresh tomato and a fresh piece of basil, and I said, y'all eat this together. And they said it was like an explosion of flavor. It was just so good. You can just imagine how good the combination of those two things would be, freshly picked from the garden, but especially if it's warmed by the sun. There's just nothing like it. If you live somewhere where you can put a garden out, or at least, you could put a pot on a balcony and grow a tomato plant in it, I would encourage you to do that, because it's the best feeling in the world to be able to do something like that. And just to provide food for yourself or your family on a smallish scale. We've gotten so far away from that in our modern society. And I was just listening to some young women today. It's their the YouTube channel is, I believe it's the Presley Girls. And they are young women, and I think they're 28 is what they said, but they're very talented young women. The reason why I started watching them is because their mother has a channel about Appalachia. And so she is from Western North Carolina, as well as her daughters. And so she talks about the Appalachian spirit and the dialect and the foods and the Appalachian folkways. And that is so fascinating to me. And that's sort of a roundabout segue, because I'm going to tell you about a book at the end here that I'd love for you to read, and maybe we could read it together sometime, about Appalachia. Now, I am not originally from Appalachia. I am from more the flatlands of Tennessee, and so outside of Nashville. But I married an Appalachian boy, and so all of his family, of course, are Appalachian people, and then so thereby my children are too. And when I moved up to East Tennessee, I was 10 when I moved up there. The history of Middle Tennessee is fascinating, but the Appalachian history, there are facets to it that I had not known before, and it is just so beautiful. There is so much beauty to it, and there's beauty to everyone's history, of course, but I really just enjoyed everything about it. And if you're from the Appalachian region, you know what I'm talking about, probably. If you're interested in history, or you want to preserve your family's folkways. And So all that to say, the Presley girls today were talking about how they feel different from their peers because they still do things in the tradition of their parents and grandparents, and that is they still grow a garden and they preserve a lot of their own food, and they don't, their worldview is very different than the modern society's worldview. And I love that about them because I try to cultivate that here. We, as many of you know, we homeschooled all of our children from kindergarten to college, and they're thriving adults. They're doing well, and but we wanted their lives to be more home centered, and it worked out beautifully. And so this is what I'm trying to tell you right now is also tying into something that my husband told me about that he learned last week. He's a member of a group of people. They're business leaders who meet once a quarter in California, and so he told me about something that one of the guys was talking about. And this probably would apply to people who are older like me rather than young people, but it could apply to young people too. But they were talking about, we work so hard. Picture a Venn diagram, and so you've worked hard to create certain things in your life, and you've got those circles overlapping each other in that Venn diagram. And so say you've got your job, and then you've got your family, and then you've got your maybe hobbies, and then maybe you've created you are working on a skill, or maybe you're working on a garden. I'm just using examples from my own life. Well, so say I've got 5 circles going on here and they're overlapping one another. Instead of trying to go out and create a 6th circle that could spread me way too thin, I should stay within those circles and try to really cultivate what I've already created. And I really like that because you can strive till the end of your life, but if you keep on wearing yourself thin by trying new things constantly instead of trying to really cultivate some of the things you've already created, you sort of miss out on what you could really do from within things that you've already taken the time to create and cultivate. You just need to expound upon that. And I hope that makes sense to you. I hope I'm explaining that right. It really resonated with me because, again, I love to learn, and I'm always forever trying new things. And just this year, I have started dialing back and kind of thinking, you know what, let's not try to be the next latest and greatest esthetician or the latest and greatest seller at the farmer's market. I've done that before, or the latest and greatest teacher of home arts that I've taught those classes before. Let's dial it back some and just cultivate what I've already created. And because I've always kind of tried to earn money in little ways here and there, and I have to remind myself that society will sometimes try to tell us as women that you're not doing as much as you can if you choose to get married, have children, and stay at home and raise those children. Society wants to tell us, well, you're just a housewife or you're just a mother. No, you're not just a housewife or just a mother. You are a housewife or you are a mother, and you're doing the most important job in the world because the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And there's a lot to that. And I have wanted for a long, long time to be that Titus 2 woman of the Bible that tells us to older women teach the younger women. And it's that time. So I think I've gone off on a tangent here that I didn't mean to get off on, but all that to say, I just please know, because I know that there are a lot of young mothers who watch this channel. So I want to encourage you, because I felt it, darling girls. I felt it, and it's hard because you think you're not doing enough if you're just here taking care of the house and you're taking care of the kids and you're homeschooling the kids. In the back of my head, I always thought I was less than, and so I always kind of thought, I've got to find a way to make more money. I've got to make some money. And finally, at 52, I've realized, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to keep striving and trying to prove your worth. Your worth, it can be in the family that you raise up. So please know that. Please know that you're doing a very important thing, little mama. So let me tell you, let's go back 2 steps. Let's go back 2 steps, because I want to round this all around back to this book excerpt that I'm going to read to you. But I did want to tell you too about a trip that I'm going to take on Wednesday. So I am flying to Nashville, Tennessee on Wednesday, and I'm going to go down to Waverly, to my home county, and meet up with one of my cousins. He is my first cousin, twice removed, and he's 80 years old. Don't let that age make you picture an old man, because I guarantee he could run circles around younger men, and I know he could outfox them. He is sharp as a tack, and you would not think you were talking to an 80-year-old if you spoke to him. So he's so fascinating because he is the last, he and his sister, I should say, are the last of their generation. His sister is 90, and they are the history keepers of my Page family roots. So he and I share great-great-grandparents, but the folks who are my great-great-grandparents were actually his great-grandparents. And so I'll try to explain it. My great-grandmother and his mother were sisters, but his mother was the baby of the family, and then my great-grandmother was second or third born, so she was one of the older kids, and I think there could be about 20 years in between the two of them. So that kind of tells you the age differences. But anyway, he is a fascinating person, and he has so much knowledge of our family history. And I know a lot, or I thought I knew a lot, but he just told me something that I didn't even realize a couple of weeks ago. And so we're going to go down there down to Waverly to have my father's memorial service sometime this summer. And I was talking to my cousin about it, and he was telling me about some of the family history. And he said, well, I tell you what, when you come down here, I'll take you to the old cemetery. And he was telling me about all these places he would take me to and all these places he would show me. And I said, you know what, Andy, I'm not going to have time to do that while I'm there for the memorial. And plus, I'm going to have all my family with me, and they may not be as interested as I am. So why don't we do it like this? Why don't I come early and you take me around and show me? And so I cannot tell you how excited I am about this, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'll fly into Nashville and then drive on to Waverly. But here's another part of that. It's so beautiful down there. It's a great area for hunting and fishing. It's an outdoorsman's paradise. And so I have another cousin who lives out on Kentucky Lake, and I'm going to be staying with them. They're on the other side of the family, and they have a beautiful home, and it's also called Turkey Creek. The reason why it's called two things, Kentucky Lake and Turkey Creek, is because Turkey Creek was there first. But during, I want to say the 1920s, I don't know what year it flooded, but TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, built a dam, and they flooded this area where Turkey Creek was running, and the flooding caused the area to form a lake, and it's called Kentucky Lake, and that's how they got power in Tennessee from the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, from the water. That's interesting too, because underneath that lake are houses and barns and farms that people once owned. And so that's going to tie into this part of this book that I'm reading too. It's so cool how many little correlations there are today in this video. So all that to say, I'm so excited about going, because my family, I'm so fortunate, and I pray that I have young cousins who and maybe grandchildren who are going to be this interested in our family history someday, and I hope to be that person, because these people are, some of them are getting up there, in age, and they're not going to always be around anymore. And so it's going to be up to my generation to provide that insight about our family's history. And so I'm so lucky, because even at this age that I am, they spoil me still. And so I go to my other cousin's home on the lake, and they're just precious to me. They are precious, and they are first cousins once removed. So they are actually all of my father's generation. They were born in the same line of my father. I'm an oddball in my age group in my family, because I was the first cousin on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. I was the first grandchild on both sides, I should say. And so the next closest relative I have is my brother, who's 23 months younger than I am, so just 2 years younger than me. And then the rest of the cousins are quite a bit younger than I am. And so I never had cousins my age. So the people that I always talked to were my older cousins, my father's and mother's cousins. So those are the people who I've always gravitated toward. But it's going to be so informational. It's going to be so fun, and I'm just really excited to visit with them again, because they put out a good spread too. A lot of times, one of my cousins, he is a great fisherman, and so they'll go catfish fishing, and they'll bring home a bunch of catfish and clean them out there, and so they'll have a fish fry, and they'll have hush puppies and coleslaw and fresh tomatoes from the garden and green beans, and Lord have mercy, my mouth's watering right now just thinking about it. So I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. While I'm down there though, I'll try my best to take some video and make some pictures. It may not happen as much as I would like, but we'll see what happens, because I want to be present while I'm there, and I don't want to take away from my cousin's information by having a camera out a lot, but I'm going to try to get as much information as I can, and so I'd love to share it with y'all when I get back. So, but let me tell you something too. I'm going to read to you from this book right quick, and tell me if any of y'all have read this. This is called Dory, Woman of the Mountains, and it's by Florence Cope Bush. And I've probably read this book at least 4 times. It is one of my most favorite books for so many reasons. First of all, it's set in Sevier County, and that is where I moved when I turned 10. And so I know a lot of the places that she speaks of in this book. And secondly, my husband's family is distantly related to the Bush family by marriage. The Bush family, I'm pretty positive that this Bush is also related to the Bush bean people. So I'm sure you've seen Bush's beans in the grocery store. Well, there's a big Bush's bean cannery in Chestnut Hill, Tennessee. And anyway, I think that this is all the same bunch. So that's interesting to me, just an interesting little snippet of information. But I'm going to read to you the introduction from this book. And it says, my parents, Dory Woodruff Cope and Fred Cope were part of the mass migration of people leaving the mountains when the government claimed their homeland to establish the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I was born in Tremont, a settlement between Townsend and Cades Cove. When they left their home, I was 3 years old, and I have no memory of ever having lived in the misty blue mountains. But everything about the Smokies fascinates me, and I'm ever drawn back to the place of my birth. My heart has always been in the mountains. Many summers spent with my grandparents on their farm in Sevier County, Tennessee, gave me a sense of relation to the mountains and their people. Granny and I spent evenings going through the family pictures and records she kept in a large trunk beside their bed, and even then I felt a sense of loss because no one seemed to care about the lives these people had led and how they got to where they were, or that they even existed. Many years after the death of my grandparents and my father, I felt the familiar urge to go home to the Smokies. Knowing we were losing part of our heritage, I spent 9 years talking to my mother, Dory Woodruff Cope, about her childhood and life in the mountains. Memories long forgotten surfaced as we moved backward in time. One thought led to another until we were back at the beginning of her life. Dory, Woman of the Mountains, was not written with the idea that it would ever be published. I wrote it as a gift to my daughter, my mother, and myself. The manuscript was in my possession for 15 years before a friend talked me into letting him publish 2,000 copies in paperback for local distribution. The impact of the book surprised everyone. Dory came to represent a female relative in almost everyone's life. So often I heard, "You wrote about my mother, my grandmother, or my aunt." Much effort went into researching the accuracy of the events described in the story. My mother and I went through letters, pictures, often having valuable descriptive material on the back, her father's time books from the Little River Lumber Company, documents from the Oconaluftee Township, North Carolina, and papers written by my father. I became a familiar patron in libraries and archives in both North Carolina and Tennessee. Finally, it all came together. With Dory, we returned to a time before the Outlanders' civilization slipped in through the door. Meager livings came from the isolated, nearly perpendicular farms in the coves and hollows. Money was almost non-existent, and food and clothing came from back-breaking labor on one's own land. Before mason jars were brought into the hills, food was dried or smoked. Clothing came from sheep, flax, and cotton grown on the farm. Great changes came with a lumberman pouring into the mountains. As money became available to the Highlanders, old customs and ideas crumbled. Centuries-old art and crafts were abandoned for modern methods. Why weave a basket when you could buy one? Wasn't a machine-made blanket better than a handcrafted quilt? Wasn't food in tin cans better than the home-dried or home-canned varieties? As must always happen, the old gave way to the new. Now, I would like for you to meet Dory. She probably will remind you of somebody you already know and love. This is my mother telling her story as she told it to me, and that was by Florence Cope Bush, November 29th, 1990. And so from 1898 to 1907 is the first time period that she talks about. And I'd like for you to think about that right now. So 1898, so that was 127 years ago. And it seems like a long time ago, but was it really? No. I mean, you can look at some of the old photographs on YouTube in which they're old black and whites, and with the help of AI, they colorize them and bring them to life. And to me, that brings old family members to life even more, because seeing people in color makes them more real than black and white does. And so that winds me back to me talking about the Presley girls from earlier today on YouTube, because they were talking about how we've gotten away from the old ways. And I'm by no means suggesting that we go back to that back-breaking labor. But what I have noticed in the last, I'm going to say 5 years for sure, but 10 years, 15 maybe even, things have changed so drastically that it's almost unrecognizable compared to the way it was when I was a kid. And I know that older people always seem to wax poetic about the old days, and I don't want it to be the old days again per se, but I do think that some of the old ways were better, because when you have so much time on your hands and so much time to watch YouTube or just social media, because you have enough money and your food can be DoorDashed to you and you don't have to work as hard, you have more time to create things that maybe aren't even true. You have time to invent things. You have time to invent issues that maybe aren't really that bad. You just exacerbate them in your mind because you have the time to think about that. And so when I think back about this time period, Dory's time period, there wasn't a whole lot of the nonsense that there is today, because people, quite frankly, if you're raising a sheep to shear and then wash the wool and then spin the wool and then weave the wool to make clothes, you're not going to be thinking about how you're a victim, or you want to go off on a tangent and do something that's just incredulous and people wouldn't have even thought about, say, 15 years ago. So in that sense, I do wish sometimes that we could go back, and I know we can't, and that's okay. But again, I'm going to try to stick with that little, sorry, hope that didn't hurt your ears, that little Venn diagram model that I told you about earlier, and stay within my circles here and try to cultivate that more instead of trying to reach out and do new things over and over again, because you can create something beautiful with things that you already have. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it was relaxing for you. And if you have anything to say about it down below, I would love to hear your thoughts. I always love to hear from you. And I just can't wait to see you on the next video. Y'all take good care, my friends, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.